Once again this week, she rejected any touch and avoided eye contact. I stopped trying. I made the decision this morning. I promised in sickness and in health, but not in indifference. When the woman you share a bed with acts like you're invisible, you have two options: beg or give up. But I chose the third. And what I found out about her and myself, nobody was ready to hear it. 5 rejections in 7 days. I counted, because there comes a time when you start keeping score, when someone makes you feel like you're asking for the impossible just for wanting basic affection from your own wife. Tuesday morning, I reached over to pull her closer. She stiffened up like I'd touched a hot stove, mumbling something about being late for work. Wednesday night, I tried to hold her hand during a movie. She found an urgent need to check her phone, which lasted the whole film. Thursday, I leaned in for a goodbye kiss. She turned her cheek and bolted out the door like her house was on fire. By Friday, I wasn't even trying anymore, but apparently my mere presence in the same room required her to find excuses to leave. And this morning, Saturday, when I simply asked if she wanted coffee in bed like we used to do every weekend for 3 years, she looked at me as if I'd suggested something disgusting. "I'm not really a morning person anymore," she said, without looking at me. Without looking at me? When did my wife stop being able to look at me? I stood there in our kitchen, holding 2 coffee mugs, watching her scroll through her phone with the dedication of someone conducting important research. The morning light hit her wedding ring, and for a split second, I wondered if she even remembered what it meant anymore. That's when something clicked. Not a dramatic revelation or an emotional breakdown, just a simple, clear understanding. I was tired of being the only person trying in this marriage. I was tired of being made to feel like an intruder in my own home, tired of begging for crumbs of attention from someone who couldn't be bothered to make eye contact. I put both mugs down on the counter harder than necessary. She looked up, startled. "You know what? You're absolutely right. You're not a morning person anymore," I said. I grabbed my keys from the hook near the door. "Actually, don't worry about being any kind of person with me anymore. Problem solved." The confusion on her face was almost comical. Almost. "Where are you going? We were going to do chores together today." I turned back, and for the first time in weeks, she was actually looking at me. "A little too late, isn't it? Last I checked, doing chores together would require you to acknowledge that I exist for more than 30 seconds straight." I opened the door. "Don't wait up for me. In fact, don't wait at all. That seems to be your specialty anyway." I spent the day driving aimlessly, thinking not about what I had done wrong or how to fix things, not about grand romantic gestures or couples therapy or any of the usual solutions they suggest when marriages hit the rocks. I thought about what I wanted from my life and if I was getting it. The answer was simple. I wanted to feel desired. I wanted to come home to someone happy to see me. I wanted to touch my wife without feeling like I was committing a crime. Basic things, things I used to have. When I got home that night, she was making dinner. She looked up as I walked in, and I could see the questions in her eyes, the slight uncertainty. Good. Maybe now she was paying attention. "Dinner smells good," I said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "I made your favorite," she said, her voice cautious. "How thoughtful," I replied. I sat on the counter, but not in my usual spot next to where she cooks. I chose the stool across the kitchen, creating distance. "It's been a while since you paid attention to what I like, want, or need." "That's not fair." "Okay, let's talk about fair. Is it fair that I feel like a stranger in my own marriage? Is it fair that I have to wonder what I did wrong every time I try to touch my own wife? Is it fair that you treat the grocery store clerk with more warmth than you show me?" She turned to face me completely, wooden spoon still in her hand. "You're being dramatic." "Am I? When was the last time you kissed me? Really kissed me? Not just a peck on the cheek as you're running out the door." Silence. She couldn't answer, because she didn't remember. Neither did I.
When was the last time you initiated any kind of physical contact? When was the last time you looked happy to see me walk in the door? When was the last time you acted like you actually wanted to be married to me instead of just fulfilling obligations? More silence, but this time I could see her thinking, maybe even remembering. I finished my beer and stood up. I'm going to make this very easy for you. You don't have to worry about me trying anymore. You don't have to come up with creative ways to avoid me, reject me, or make me feel like I'm bothering you. Consider me officially hands off, period. What does that mean? I paused at the kitchen entrance. It means you got what you wanted. Complete freedom from having to deal with the affectionate husband. Congratulations. I walked up the stairs, leaving her standing there with her wooden spoon and her confusion. For the first time in months, I felt like I had taken back some control, not over her, but over myself, over my own dignity. I was not going to beg anyone to love me, not even my own wife. The following week was fascinating, not in a painful way, but in that way a scientific experiment unfolding can be fascinating. I had set new rules for myself, and I was going to follow them religiously. Monday came with the same routine, except I didn't reach for her when I woke up. I got up, showered, made my own coffee, and left for work without the customary attempt at a goodbye that usually resulted in her turning away. Instead, I just yelled, "Going to work," from the front door and left. When I got home that night, she was in the living room reading. She looked up expectantly, as if waiting for me to walk over to her, try to kiss her hello, or ask about her day. Instead, I nodded politely and went straight to the kitchen to make my own dinner. "How was your day?" she asked after a few minutes. "Good," I replied, with no elaborations about the challenging project at work, no funny story about my coworker, no attempt to engage her in conversation, just good. Tuesday brought the first test. She needed help moving some furniture in the guest room. The old me would have dropped everything to help, probably making jokes and trying to turn it into a fun activity together. The new me looked up from my book and said, "Sure, but I'm busy right now. Maybe on the weekend." The surprise on her face was notable. She was used to immediate compliance, used to me being available whenever she needed something, while giving nothing in return.
Heartbroken, Invisible Husband, Part 2. "But it will only take a few minutes," she insisted. "I'm sure it will. The weekend works better for me." I went back to reading as if the conversation was over. Wednesday night, she tried a different approach. She made dinner for both of us again, set the table with candles, and even put on music. When I walked in and saw the scene, I almost smiled. "This looks nice," I said, sitting down. But I didn't gush over her effort, nor did I read more into it than it truly was. I ate, genuinely complimented the food, but briefly, and when she started talking about her day, I listened politely without asking follow-up questions or trying to connect it to something we could do together. "You're acting weird," she said halfway through dinner. "In what way?" "You're just different, distant." I put down my fork and looked right at her. "I'm giving you exactly what you've been asking for. Space, no pressure, no unwanted attention." "I never asked for that." "You didn't? Every time you flinched when I tried to touch you, every time you avoided looking at me, every time you found an excuse to leave the room when I walked in, actions speak louder than words." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Good move. Thursday brought another interesting event. She came home with groceries and struggled with multiple bags at the door. Normally, I would have rushed to help. Instead, I watched from the window as she made 3 trips, panting and clearly frustrated. When she finally brought everything in, she looked at me like I had committed a crime. "You could have helped," she said, slightly out of breath. "I could have asked," I replied calmly, "but you seem to prefer handling things independently lately." The look she gave me was a mix of confusion and irritation. Progress. Friday was when things truly got interesting. She came home late from work, which wasn't unusual, but this time she seemed to be expecting some kind of reaction from me. A question about where she had been, maybe some worry or jealousy.
Instead, I was reading in my armchair when she walked in and simply looked up and said, "Hi." That's it? Just hi? What else would you like me to say? I don't know, maybe ask where I've been? I'm 2 hours late. I marked my page and closed the book. You were. I didn't notice. I've been busy with my own things. It wasn't entirely true, but it felt true. I was choosing to live now. She stood there for a moment, clearly waiting for more. When nothing came, she went upstairs. I heard the shower turn on and wondered if she was starting to understand what it felt like to be ignored. Saturday morning brought the most telling moment yet. I was making my breakfast when she walked into the kitchen in her robe, looking like she expected our usual weekend routine. Instead of asking if she wanted any or making an extra amount just in case, I simply continued to fry my eggs. "Are you making enough for two?" she asked. "No, just for me." I put my food on the plate and sat down to eat. She stared at me for a moment. Then she opened the cupboard to get herself some cereal. As she poured the cereal into the bowl, I could feel her gaze on me, likely trying to understand when I had become someone who didn't automatically consider her needs. "We need to talk," she said, sitting across from me with the bowl of cereal. "About what?" "About this thing that's happening, this attitude you've developed." I finished chewing and looked her right at her. What attitude would that be? "You know what I'm talking about. You're acting like we're roommates, not married." The irony was so thick I could have cut it with my fork. Interesting observation. How exactly are married people supposed to act toward each other? She hesitated, likely realizing she'd walked into her own trap. They're supposed to care about each other, be affectionate, share things. "Share things?" I repeated slowly, "like physical affection, like looking at each other when you talk, like being interested in the other person's day, life, and feelings?" She was silent for a long moment. "This is different." "Is it? From where I'm sitting, I'm treating you exactly the way you've been treating me. The only difference is you don't like being on the receiving end of it." I finished my coffee, rinsed my plate, and headed for the door. "I'm going out for a bit. Have a good Saturday." As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror, standing at the window, watching me leave. For the first time in months, she looked genuinely unsure where I was going and when I'd be back. Funny how quickly things can change when you stop playing a game you're bound to lose. The discovery came by accident. Although, on second thought, maybe I was subconsciously looking for answers. It was Tuesday night, and she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she showered. The screen was still on, showing her email inbox. I wasn't snooping. I was just walking past to get a glass of water when I saw the preview of an unread message that stopped me cold. The sender's name was someone from her gym, and the preview text read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, same time as usual." I stood there for a moment, processing. She had never mentioned making friends at the gym. In fact, whenever I asked about her workouts, she was always vague, saying she just did cardio and left. I didn't touch her laptop. I didn't need to. Instead, I went upstairs and lay in bed, thinking about all the late nights, all the times she came home slightly flushed, claiming she had an intense workout, all the sudden interest in dressing better for the gym, buying new workout clothes that seemed more focused on fashion than function. The pieces were falling into place, but I wasn't angry. If anything, I felt vindicated. Her behavior finally made sense. On Wednesday, I decided to test my theory. When she announced she was heading to the gym after work, I simply nodded and said, "Have fun." No questions about when she'd be back, no offer to make dinner, just casual indifference. "I might be late," she said, watching my face for a reaction. "All right," I replied, without looking up from my phone. She stood by the door for a moment, clearly waiting for more questions or concern. When none came, she left with what seemed to be disappointment on her face. That's when it hit me. She wanted me to care. She wanted me to ask questions, to get jealous, to fight for her attention. My complete lack of interest was ruining whatever game she was playing. That night, I spent peacefully reading, ordering takeout just for myself, and going to bed early. When she arrived at 10 p.m., I was either asleep or pretending to be. Thursday brought more evidence. Her phone rang during dinner, and she quickly rejected the call, but not before I saw the name on the screen, the same person from the gym email. "Work call?" I asked casually.
"Wrong number," she said, avoiding eye contact. The old me would have pressed for details, gotten suspicious, and started an argument. The new me just nodded and continued eating. Her relief was visible, but so was her confusion at my lack of reaction. Friday confirmed everything. She came home after her workout wearing different clothes than when she left. Her explanation was that she'd spilled something on her top and borrowed one from a friend at the gym. Plausible, except she'd never mentioned having friends at the gym before. "That was nice of your friend," I commented softly. "Yeah, she's really sweet." Interesting how a friend quickly turned into a she, covering her tracks before I could ask questions. But the most telling moment came on Saturday morning. She was in the shower, and her phone was charging on the nightstand. It lit up with a text message, and from across the room, I could see it was from the gym person again. Something about meeting up later. I didn't move to read it. I didn't need to. The pattern was clear enough. When she stepped out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed putting on my shoes. "Going somewhere?" she asked. "Going out for a bit. You probably have plans anyway." She froze, wrapped in her towel, water still dripping from her hair. "What plans?" "I don't know, whatever it is you usually do on Saturdays." I stood up and grabbed my wallet. "It seems like you've been pretty busy lately." The look on her face was priceless, part panic, part guilt, part confusion over how much I actually knew. "I don't have plans," she said carefully. "Too bad. You should get some hobbies, branch out, meet new people." I paused at the bedroom door. "Oh wait, it looks like you already did." I left her standing there, still dripping, probably trying to decipher exactly what I meant by that. The truth is, I didn't care about the details, whether it was emotional, physical, or just the thrill of getting attention from someone new. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I finally understood why she was pulling away from me. She was getting her needs met elsewhere. And that knowledge was liberating, because now I knew this wasn't about something I had done wrong, or something I needed to fix about myself. This was about her, making choices, and I could make choices too. When I got home that night, she was in the kitchen again, clearly having spent the day thinking about our morning conversation. "We need to talk," she said the moment I walked in. "Do we?" I opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. "You're acting like you know something." I took a long sip and looked right at her. "I know lots of things. You'll have to be more specific." The frustration on her face was becoming familiar. She wasn't used to me being so calm, so controlled. She was used to emotional reactions, to me getting upset, jealous, or demanding answers. "You're being paranoid," she said. "Finally, am I? Or am I just finally paying attention?" I sat on the counter, completely relaxed. Either way, it doesn't matter anymore. "What does that mean?" I smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It means I stopped caring about things that are outside of my control. Very liberating. You should try it sometime, actually. She stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to decide if I was bluffing. The thing is, I wasn't. I had genuinely stopped caring about saving a marriage with someone who had already checked out. That night, she tried something she hadn't in weeks. She came to bed wearing something revealing and tried to initiate physical contact. For the first time in our marriage, it was I who pulled away. "Not tonight," I said, calmly, not even taking my eyes off my book. The shock on her face was absolute. She was used to being the one with all the power, the one who decided if and when we'd be intimate. To have that power taken away left her speechless. I thought you started to..." "Thought what? That I'd always be available whenever you decided you wanted attention?" I marked my page and looked at her. "Those days are over. You don't get to reject me for weeks and then expect me to be grateful for crumbs when it's convenient for you."
She sat there on the edge of the bed, likely realizing for the first time that her actions had consequences she hadn't anticipated. Monday morning brought the conversation I'd been waiting for. She cornered me in the kitchen before I could leave for work, arms crossed, the look of someone who had spent the weekend gathering courage for a tough discussion. "We need to figure out what's going on with us," she announced. I poured my coffee slowly, deliberately, taking my time. "What's going on with us? I thought you made that pretty clear over the last few weeks." "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means you've been acting like I'm a roommate you barely tolerate, and now I'm returning the favor. I figured you'd appreciate the consistency." She shifted uncomfortably. "That's not what I was doing." I turned to face her, leaning back against the counter with my coffee. "Really? So all those times you couldn't stand to be touched? All those conversations where you looked everywhere but at me? All those nights you suddenly remembered urgent chores the moment I walked into a room? That was what, exactly?" I've been stressed. Work has been crazy." "And you've been finding comfort somewhere else?" The color drained from her face. Bullseye. "I don't know what you're talking about." I took a sip of coffee and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Of course not. All those late-night gym sessions with your new friend, the sudden interest in looking nice for workouts, the calls you reject when I'm around." She opened her mouth, then shut it. "Good move." "What I find fascinating," I set down my mug, "is that you spent weeks making me feel like I was some kind of plague for basic affection from my own wife. But the moment I stop trying, suddenly you're concerned about our relationship." That's not fair." "Exactly." I stepped forward, and she actually took a step back. "Let me ask you something. When was the last time you came home from the gym actually looking like you worked out?" The panic in her eyes was confirmation enough. "When was the last time you mentioned this gym friend's name, described what she looks like, talked about anything specific you two discussed during your workouts?" "I don't have to justify my friendships to you." "Friendships," I repeated the word slowly. "Interesting choice of words. Although it's technically accurate, I'm sure you and your gym partner are very friendly." She was getting angry now, which meant she felt cornered. "Well, you're being ridiculous. You're creating problems that don't exist." "Am I? Then prove it." "How?" "Call your gym friend right now. Put her on speaker. Let's all chat about fitness routines and protein shakes." The silence stretched between us like a live wire. She couldn't do it, and we both knew it. "I don't have to prove anything to you." "You're absolutely right. And I don't have to pretend I don't see what's right in front of me." "Where are you going?" "To work. You know, that place where people actually show up and do what they're supposed to." The jab landed. She flinched.
That night, she tried a different approach. When I got home, she was cooking an elaborate dinner, had opened a bottle of wine, and was wearing a dress I hadn't seen in months. "What's the occasion?" I asked, loosening my tie. "Can't I make a special dinner for my husband?" "You can do whatever you want, but the timing is interesting." She handed me a glass of wine. "What do you mean?" "I mean, yesterday you could barely look at me, and today you're playing the devoted wife. It's quite a performance." Her hand tightened around the wine glass. "It's not a performance." "Then what changed between yesterday and today?" She took a large sip of wine before answering. "I realized I've been taking you for granted." "How convenient. And what exactly triggered this realization? Did something happen at the gym?" The wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. "Why do you keep bringing up the gym?" "Because that's where all your free time and energy seem to go lately. I'm just curious about what makes it so rewarding." She put the glass down harder than necessary. "You're being paranoid and jealous." "Jealous?" I laughed, and it was not a kind sound. "You think I'm jealous of what, exactly? The privilege of being ignored? The joy of sleeping next to someone who acts like I have the plague? The honor of being married to someone who can't wait to leave the house? It's not how I see it." "I get that. But here's the thing about perspective. It changes depending on where you're standing. And where I'm standing, I'm not jealous. I'm relieved. Relieved to finally understand what's going on. Relieved I don't have to keep wondering what I did wrong. Relieved I can stop trying to fix something that was broken by someone else's choices. She stared at me for a long moment. What are you saying? I'm saying your little gym friendship explains everything. Why you can't stand for me to touch you, why you avoid eye contact, why you've been emotionally checked out for weeks. You've been getting your needs met elsewhere, so you don't need anything from me. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't? Then why don't you explain it to me? Tell me about these workouts that keep you out until 10 p.m. Describe these protein shake conversations that are so engaging. Paint me a picture of this friendship that's so important you can't even tell me your friend's name. She was cornered, and she knew it. Any detailed explanation would require lies she hadn't prepared, and any refusal to explain would confirm what I already suspected. I shouldn't have to defend my friendships. You shouldn't have to defend anything if it was innocent, but here we are. I finished my wine and set the glass down. Dinner smells good. Too bad I've lost my appetite. As I started up the stairs, I heard her call after me. You're ruining this. I stopped on the steps and turned around. You're ruining this? That's rich. You emotionally and physically check out of our marriage. You find someone else to give you attention, and I'm the one ruining things? That's not what happened. Then what happened? Enlighten me. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at me with tears in her eyes. But they weren't tears of guilt or remorse. They were tears of frustration because her game wasn't working anymore. I think we should take a break, she said softly. A break from what? We've been on a break for weeks. You just didn't bother to tell me. I mean a real break, some space to figure things out. I smiled down at her. Finally, an honest conversation. Yes, let's figure things out. Let's figure out exactly what kind of person I married and what kind of life I want to live. I continued up the stairs, leaving her standing there with her elaborate dinner, her tears, and her sudden desire for space. The funny thing is, I'd been trying to give her space for weeks. She just didn't like it when I stopped chasing her inside that space. The break she had asked for lasted exactly 12 hours. By Tuesday morning, she was already back to trying to engage me in conversation, asking about my day, offering to make breakfast. The sudden shift would have been funny if it weren't so transparent. I've been thinking about what you said, she announced as I got ready for work. Which part? About us taking each other for granted. I adjusted my tie in the mirror, watching her reflection behind me. Interesting theory. How exactly have I been taking you for granted? She paused, clearly not thought that far ahead. Well, maybe you haven't been as attentive lately. Attentive, I turned to face her. You mean like when I tried to hold your hand and you pulled away? Or when I tried to kiss you goodbye and you turned your face? That kind of inattentiveness? I didn't mean it that way. How did you mean it? Another pause. She was scrambling, trying to rewrite history in real time. I guess we just fell into a routine. We lost our spark. Our spark, I picked up my wallet and keys. And where exactly did you go looking for this spark? The gym, perhaps? The color drained from her face again. Why do you keep saying that? Because that's where you spend all your free time and energy? Where you come back looking refreshed and energized? Where you've apparently found something I can't provide? It's not like that. Then it is like what? Describe it to me. She couldn't, and we both knew why. That evening, things escalated. I came home with candles lit all over the house, soft music playing, and her wearing lingerie I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. The effort was impressive, but the timing was completely wrong. What's the occasion? I asked, putting down my briefcase. Do I need an occasion to want to be close to my husband? The irony was so dense I could taste it. Apparently not, although it's fascinating how this desire suddenly appeared the moment I stopped pursuing you. She walked towards me, trying to look seductive, but all I could see was calculation behind her eyes. "I miss you," she said, trying to unbutton my shirt. I gently pushed her hands away. "Do you, or do you miss me having you as a backup option?" "That's not it." "Isn't it? For weeks, touching me was apparently repulsive. Looking at me took too much effort. Being in the same room was a chore. But now that I've stopped trying, suddenly you're overcome with passion?" She stepped back, frustration replacing the seductive facade. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. That's the point. I don't want anything from you anymore." "You're not serious." "I'm absolutely serious. You taught me a valuable lesson about wanting things from people who have no intention of giving them. Consider me graduated." Wednesday brought desperation. She started texting me during work, sending pictures of herself, trying to provoke jealousy by mentioning other men at her office. Each message was more transparent than the last. When I got home, she was waiting with a proposal. "I think we should take a trip this weekend, just the two of us, reconnect." Reconnect with what? With a relationship where you call all the shots, where you decide when I'm worthy of attention and when I'm not? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And now that I'm not playing that game anymore, you want to change the rules.
Thursday was when she finally snapped. I was reading in the living room when she stormed in, phone in hand. "I canceled my gym membership," she announced. "Congratulations. I'm sure that was a difficult decision." "You don't want to know why?" "Not particularly. Your gym habit stopped being my concern when my opinion stopped mattering to you." "You're being impossible." "I'm being consistent. Something you might want to try sometime." She threw her phone onto the couch. "What is it going to take? What do I have to do to fix this?" "Fix what? As far as I can tell, everything is exactly how you wanted it. You have your freedom, your space, your independence. You don't have to deal with an affectionate husband anymore." "But I want to deal with you. I want us to be close again." "Want or need? Because there's a difference. Want suggests genuine desire. Need suggests you realized you can't have your cake and eat it too." Friday brought the nuclear option. She came home early from work, clearly having cried, and sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I need to tell you something," she said. "I'm listening." "I've been confused lately about what I want, about us." "Confused? Interesting choice of word." "I might have gotten too close to someone at the gym." I closed the magazine I was reading and gave her my full attention. "Might have? It wasn't my intention. It was just something that developed." "What exactly developed?" "Feelings, attraction. I don't know. It's confusing." I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. "Let me make sure I understand. You've been emotionally, possibly physically, involved with someone else, and now you're telling me because... why?" "Because I realized it was a mistake, because I want to work on us." "You want to work on us now, after working on someone else?" "It wasn't like that." "How was it then? Paint me a picture. Help me understand how my wife accidentally developed feelings for someone else while actively smothering any feelings for me." She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no anger, no jealousy, just cold observation. "I was lonely," she whispered. "Lonely?" I repeated the word slowly. "You were lonely while living with someone who was desperate to connect with you? Lonely while married to someone who tried every day to show you affection? Lonely while rejecting every attempt I made to bridge the distance between us? I know how it sounds." "Do you really? Because it sounds like you wanted the security of marriage with the thrill of being single. It sounds like you wanted the husband at home while playing girlfriend somewhere else. It may not be what you intended, but it's what you did. And now that your little adventure is over, and I'm assuming it's over, or you wouldn't be here confessing, you want to crawl back into the safety of your marriage?" She nodded through her tears. I stood up slowly, walked to the window, and looked out at our neighborhood. Nice houses, nice lawns, nice lives. At least they looked nice on the outside. Here's what's going to happen, I said without turning around. You're going to pack a bag. You're going to stay somewhere else for a while. And you're going to figure out who you really are when you don't have multiple options to fall back on. Please don't do this. I turned to face her. I'm not doing anything. You did this. I'm just deciding how to respond to what you've already done. I choose you. I'm here telling you I choose you. No, you're here because your other choice didn't work out. There's a difference. And frankly, being someone's consolation prize is not appealing to me anymore. The look of shock on her face suggested she expected forgiveness, maybe even gratitude for her honesty. Instead, she was learning that some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt with tears and regret. She didn't pack that night. Instead, she spent the weekend trying to negotiate, bargaining as if our marriage were a business deal she could save with the right offer. "I'll do anything," she said on Sunday morning. "Counseling, therapy, whatever you want." I was making coffee, following my normal routine as she sat at the kitchen table looking defeated. "What I want is simple," I said without turning around. "I want to be with someone who genuinely wants to be with me, not someone who needs me as a fallback plan." "But I do want to be with you." "You want to? After your other option vanished? Very convenient timing." She was silent for a moment. "So that's it? You're not even going to try?" I turned to face her, coffee mug in hand. "Try what? Try to compete with someone else's memories? Try to convince you to want what you should have wanted all along? Try to rebuild trust with someone who systematically destroyed it? People make mistakes. You're right, they do. My mistake was accepting crumbs for so long that you forgot I deserved a full meal." Monday morning arrived, with clarity. While she was in the shower, I called the lawyer, not out of anger or revenge, but out of sheer practicality. Some decisions, once made, require action. When she came downstairs, I was sitting at the table with documents spread out in front of me. "What is all this?" she asked. "Divorce papers. I'm making it easy for you." The coffee mug slipped from her hands, shattering on the kitchen floor. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." "But I told you I made a mistake. I told you I want to fix this." "And I told you that some things can't be fixed. This is one of them." She knelt down, wiping up the broken ceramic with trembling hands. "Please don't do this. We can get past this." We could have gotten past a lot of things, communication issues, stress, even drifting apart, but you didn't come to me with the problems. You went to someone else with the solutions. "It didn't mean anything." I gathered the papers and stood up. "If it meant nothing, then losing me shouldn't mean anything either." "It's not the same thing." "It is. You threw away our marriage for something that meant nothing. I'm just finishing what you started." 3 months later, I was signing the final documents in my lawyer's office. She tried calling, texting, even showing up at my new apartment. Every attempt was more desperate than the last. The funny thing was, I felt free. Not bitter, not angry, just free. Free from wondering if I was enough. Free from trying to win affection that should have been given freely. Free from competing with ghosts and shadows. My phone vibrated with another text from her. "I realize now what I lost. I'm sorry." I deleted it without replying. Some apologies come too late, and some losses are actually gains in disguise. That night, I made dinner for myself. I watched what I wanted to watch, and I went to bed without wondering if the person next to me was wishing they were somewhere else. For the first time in months, I slept in peace. Because when you stop chasing people who don't want to be caught, you discover something remarkable. You don't actually need them to run. Reddit comment of the day. "Ah, how sweet. The wife only remembered she was married after the extracurricular affair went south. Surprise? None. And the OP here taught us a valuable lesson. You don't get to become the priority again when you treated them like an option. As the people say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes." Subscribe.